The wealthy man brought a homeless woman to a beauty salon and requested a hairstyle like that of his mistress. But they had no idea that the wife. "Miss, you can literally save my life," insisted Doris, a well-dressed, respectable man, grabbing her by the sleeve. "You hardly need to do anything. Let go of me, or I'll scream," she replied. "What a pervert. You even harass people on the street, yet you look decent." "Miss, it's nothing like that. Just a little masquerade. You'll pretend to be my acquaintance at a party, and then we'll all laugh together when the deception is revealed. All you need is a change of hairstyle. The resemblance is simply striking. I'll reward you." One of the most expensive beauty salons in the city was located on a quiet street surrounded by old mansions. Tourists never dropped by, and the clientele was the most respectable. Thus, it was all the more surprising for the salon manager to witness the following scene: an elegantly dressed man in an expensive cashmere coat and a girl in a filthy, cheap coat, who looked either homeless or just very poor. Her hair seemed like it had never known a haircut, and her face bore a guilty and shamefaced expression. To the administrator's astonishment, this odd pair stood at the entrance of their beauty salon and even stepped inside. "We operate strictly by appointment," the administrator shouted. "Did you book a time? How much would it cost to close your entire salon for a day?" the man casually asked, handing her a card. "Oh, so you're our regular client?" the administrator said, breaking into a smile. "We always have time available for you. What would you like, a massage, manicure?" "This woman needs to have her hair cut and dyed," he said. "I'll show you how. It's very important that the stylist can replicate everything exactly." "Yes, of course. Our best hairstylist will work with you," promised the administrator, eyeing the homeless woman with interest. Soon, their best stylist approached the peculiar pair and listened to the client's wishes. He even had a photo with a sample hairstyle and hair color. They discussed all the details of the upcoming transformation of the young woman sitting in the chair for some time, and then the stylist washed her hair and got to work. Meanwhile, the girl in the chair reflected on how she had ended up in such a life. Her name was Doris, and she spent her childhood in an orphanage. Life there was no picnic. Small and skinny, she was bullied and mistreated by the older girls, while the boys constantly tried to trip her. Watching other children being adopted, Doris looked at herself in the mirror and understood she had little chance. A dark-haired, olive-skinned girl with brown eyes didn't attract the blonde, blue-eyed adoptive parents. But unexpectedly, she got lucky. At the age of 10, Doris was taken from the orphanage to a family that had recently lost their biological daughter. She had drowned in a lake. Her new parents were rather strange people. Thin, emaciated, and deeply religious Jane and alcoholic Nicholas seemed like beings from different planets. The adoptive mother panicked at the sight of water and insisted that the girl take baths only in her presence. The stepfather viewed Doris as something akin to a pet. He agreed to take her in because his wife was on the verge of madness. When Doris turned 16, her mother was diagnosed with blood cancer. The woman literally burned away from the disease in a couple of months, and her husband completely fell apart afterward. He even tried to make advances toward Doris. The girl couldn't live like that anymore and ran away from home. She applied to college to study merchandising, completed her studies, and got a job at a large retail chain. Of course, they didn't hire her as a merchandiser without experience, but she managed to get a position as a sales clerk. In the meantime, her stepfather drank away the apartment where Doris was registered. Thus, she became homeless. After the adoption, she was no longer entitled to an apartment from the state. While working in a store that turned out to be rife with constant fines, the girl barely made ends meet. She rented a room from an elderly woman, sharing it with a colleague, and dressed in second-hand clothes or what her friends gave her. Doris understood that she had little hope in this life. 6 months ago, the situation worsened. After another inventory check, they placed a huge debt on Doris, effectively accusing her of theft. She had nothing to pay with. She was fired from her job, threatened with imprisonment. There was no money to pay for the apartment, and for some time Doris drifted from one friend to another. In the last few weeks, she practically lived at the train station. There was nowhere else to sleep. And so, this strange man approached her today, grabbing her hand. Doris even thought he might be a maniac or someone looking for entertainment. But the stranger, introducing himself as Gary, insisted that everything was perfectly legal. All she needed to do was participate in a friendly joke. "Well, look for yourself. You're a dead ringer for my friend," he assured her. "I'm genuinely amazed by the resemblance. I saw you today and was stunned." "You know, I doubt I'm right for you," Doris replied. "I have nowhere to live and I'm deep in debt. I'm unlikely to be able to play joy and happiness." "Don't be in a hurry, just name your price," Gary suggested. Doris told him her amount, and half an hour later they were standing at an ATM. Then they went together to her workplace. Doris handed the money to the manager, who merely grunted. "And where did you get rich, Palmer, huh? I hope you didn't rob a bank." "I earned it," Doris muttered. "What's it to you? Just give me my work record book back, or I'll go file a complaint." "Wow, look who's getting bold." "Well, we'll see. Maybe you'll come to pay your respects to me as well." Doris, saying nothing, waited for her documents to be brought out. Then she stepped outside, where Gary was waiting for her. He informed her that he had paid for a hostel for a month, took her there, and gave her a bit more money for necessities. Doris washed up with pleasure, took a shower, and brushed her teeth. Then they arrived at the beauty salon. As Gary dragged her down the street by the hand, Doris felt doubts. His idea seemed harmless, but something about it felt suspicious. However, she had no choice. She had already taken the money, and now she had to pay with the promised service. Obediently closing her eyes in the stylist's chair, she simply surrendered to her fate. And from the neighboring room, another woman named Anna watched the scene in astonishment. It was, by a ridiculous coincidence, Gary's wife. They had been together for many years. Anna married at her parents' insistence. In her family, it was generally not acceptable to argue with elders. Even the educational institution and profession for their daughter were chosen by her father and mother. They insisted that Anna become an accountant. Although from childhood, she adored playing with hair, making hairstyles for her dolls, cutting their hair, and later in school, she created intricate braids and updos for her friends. For several years after graduation, she indeed worked as an accountant in her husband's company, but now she had quietly resolved to pursue her cherished dream. Anna paid for her training as a hairdresser, and today, during her vacation, she was doing an internship. For now, only on models who were getting their hair done for free, but it was already a huge step forward. Seeing Gary showing a photo to the top stylist in the beauty salon and noticing the girl in the chair, she was surprised. Then the stylist himself came over to them, asking Anna to mix the dye. He held the very same photo, but the woman in it was someone Anna had never seen before. The stylist told her which bottles to take, in what proportions, and what to mix. But Anna barely listened to him. Her ears were clogged, and her head felt like it was being squeezed in a tight band of pain. The woman was almost losing consciousness, but she still managed to complete the task and mix the dye. With the photo in hand, the stylist left for the main room. Anna remained in the adjacent space, invisible to her husband and his mysterious companion. "Anna, are you pregnant? Come out for some air. You look really pale," asked the stylist with whom Anna was interning, concern evident in her voice. "No, where would I go through the whole room? There are people in there," Anna replied, scared. "Oh, come on. Just this way, we have a back entrance for staff. Stand here for a bit and breathe." Anna obediently followed the stylist, finally left in peace. Standing in the doorway and feeling the dizziness subside, Anna reflected on her life. She grew up in a complete but very authoritarian family and always felt like a racehorse that had to come in first. From an early age, her parents demanded only the highest results from their daughter. They themselves had not achieved much, being ordinary engineers, but they seriously expected their daughter to make them wealthy and bring fame to the family. Graduating from school with good grades, she pursued an economic path. Her parents were convinced that a degree in commerce and accounting would allow their daughter to earn enough money and open doors to the society of those who made a lot of money. When Gary entered Anna's life, a man from a wealthy family, her parents literally pushed her into his arms. Her usually strict father, who chased away all her suitors, even provided money for her to buy fashionable clothes. Gary noticed Anna, and then he married her. But that happiness did not come to the girl. Her whole life, she followed her parents' dictates, supporting them in their old age thanks to her husband. Yet she felt sadness and longing. Only now, as her husband distanced himself even more, was Anna ready to take a risk and try to fulfill her dream. But when she encountered her husband in the salon, she realized she had clearly overestimated her strength. Even now, pushing away the encroaching nausea, she could only think about remaining unnoticed. The thought that she might be pregnant didn't even cross her mind. Their last intimacy had been quite some time ago. Anna reassured herself that the nausea was a result of shock. She asked her supervisor for a day off, agreeing to reschedule her internship for another day, and her legs took her to the pharmacy. There, she bought a pregnancy test, deciding to take it at home. Meanwhile, Gary also left the salon. Doris had her hair cut and dyed, and now she looked exactly like the girl in the photograph. Gary promised to pick her up from the hostel and asked her not to leave the place. They parted at the salon's entrance. After the pharmacy, Anna didn't go home but stopped by her mother's, Mary's house, planning to ask for her advice regarding today's incident. While waiting for her mother to become free, Anna took the test. It showed 2 lines. It turned out that she was indeed pregnant. But Anna decided not to tell anyone about this news for now. Once she vacated the bathroom, she asked her mother for a cup of tea. She began to tell her how she saw her husband at the salon, even with another woman's photograph. But Mary reacted in her usual way. And so what? You're deceiving your husband. You took a vacation to secretly study to be a hairdresser. By the way, with his money, Anna. Did we expect this, to pay for your education while giving you a ticket to life? But, Mom, am I supposed to share everything with him? At least I don't bring photos of other women and show them to people. You know what, sweetie, her mother exclaimed. You should have gone out and asked him why he does that. Maybe he needs it for work or for some advertising campaign. As if you know everything Gary is up to. You should be thinking about why your husband isn't interested in his wife. At least try to save your family. You probably won't find another Gary. You're not getting any younger. Yeah, everything seems fine between us, Anna replied. But, in the last 6 months, he hasn't been home much. There's a lot of work right now. Maybe that's why. See, I told you, what a great husband. Appreciate him, or you'll end up on the street with nothing. Gary won't beg you to stay. Mom, come on, really? Anna said, feeling a bit calmer from the conversation. Okay, I'll try not to upset him. And remember, your husband's well-being affects ours too. Mary declared as they parted. Anna drove home, pondering her situation. Despite all the persuasion, she felt that her husband was up to something shady. But she couldn't quite grasp what it was. After ensuring the transformation of the homeless woman and tying her down with obligations after settling her debt, Gary didn't go to work. Instead, he went to see the woman he had been involved with for the past year. Her name was Viola. A capricious, whimsical beauty and the only daughter of a wealthy father, she looked stunning. As soon as Gary saw her for the first time at some official event, he lost his head. The young woman was also willing to start a romance, but only on her own terms. Few knew about Viola's wild escapades, and almost no one suspected that she was not her father's biological daughter. He and his wife had once adopted a tiny baby. The girl grew up to be an exact copy of her adoptive father, tough, determined, with an excellent business acumen. However, she did not plan to continue her parents' business. Viola dreamed of moving far away and living life to the fullest. For that, she had her own money, a gift from her father for her 18th birthday. But that was not enough for Viola. She dreamed of a much larger sum. It was entirely possible to acquire it, of course, if she pulled off a small scheme. For that, the thrill-seeker needed a reliable partner. At the age of 27, Viola had learned that there was no one more foolish than a man in love. She had been about to get married but had managed to dump her fiancé right at the ceremony in front of a crowd of guests. Her father had a hard time containing the scandal. Among her other dubious achievements were racing cars against oncoming traffic and dancing on tables at her college graduation. Viola never denied herself the pleasure of having a good time and loved to shock those around her. The only thing her father held sacred was the bonds of marriage. He had been with his wife for 40 years, and he certainly would not have approved of his daughter's affair with the married Gary Henry. Viola didn't even try to introduce them. Instead, she once asked her lover, "Have you ever wanted to run away? Leave everything behind and start over?" "Of course, I would." "But, Viola, how would we even do that? We're not playing games here. I'm firmly under my mother's thumb. My business is built on her connections, you know. If I try to make a move, I'll be thrown out of the game. She chose my wife for me, someone utterly useless, a complete pushover. Just the kind of person easy to control. What if, Gary, I offered you a way out of this situation?" Viola smirked. "What kind of way?" her lover asked, intrigued. "Are you really going to suggest a plan where I won't end up with nothing?" "It's simple. We need to disappear. Preferably taking a large sum of money from my father's safe," Viola said. "Ideally, we should die so that no one searches for us." "But that sounds a bit too radical," Gary scoffed. "I'm not ready to die." "You won't have to, but fulfill one request of mine. Download the personal files of your employees onto a flash drive. We need to find a woman about my age and type. We'll escape with the money, and she'll be found in a burned car with a bag. Let them think the money was lost in the fire. For plausibility, we'll throw in a couple of charred bills, and that'll be that." "Well, you're quite the fantasist," Gary said in admiration. "And how do we stage my disappearance?" "You'll just disappear, plain and simple, let them search. And we'll leave right away with someone else's passports, change our appearances. It will work out perfectly." At first, Gary doubted that his mistress's plan was feasible. But then he realized it might very well be possible. He also thought it was very timely. Fate itself seemed to be allowing him to solve his problem. The thing was, the company was nominally in Gary's name, but it had real investors who were unhappy with how the manager was running things. Gary knew that an audit was planned soon, and during it, his shady dealings could be uncovered. He was panicking, even though he had managed to cover his tracks quite well. He had even made it look like everything pointed to his wife. In case anything went wrong, she would have to take the fall for his fraudulent activities. The losses were already in the millions. Gary understood that disappearing would save him both from his mother's wrath and the investors. At home, Anna opened her husband's profile on social media. She agonizingly recalled where she might have seen the stranger from the photograph. Among Gary's many acquaintances, there were enough women, and yet Anna found her. The woman was named Viola, and she indeed bore a striking resemblance to the girl from the beauty salon. After changing her hairstyle and hair color, they looked like twins. Contemplating this, Anna left the house. She headed to her university friend's place, wanting to get advice about her situation. But on the way, passing by a budget hostel, she saw that very stranger who had come to the salon with Gary today. Anna rushed to intercept the girl, scaring her quite a bit. "Wait! Stop!" she shouted. "I need to talk to you." "What is it with today?" Dora sighed wearily. "You're not the first one who wants something from me." "You're Viola, and my name is Anna," Gary's wife said affirmatively. "No, my name is Doris," the girl replied. "What is it, exactly?" "Listen, you were at the beauty salon with my husband today." But it's not what you might think, the girl replied, frightened. We have purely business relations. I don't care, Anna waved dismissively. He told me what this masquerade of transforming you into another woman is about? No, he didn't explain in detail, but he did pay off my debt. You know, it's such a relief not to fear prison anymore and to have a roof over my head. Of course, I was framed, the theft was completely unjustified, but how do you prove that to anyone? Wait, Gary paid off your debt? Why would he do that? Anna was astonished. He doesn't do anything for free. Well, maybe, Doris sighed. In any case, I had no other choice, and now I will do what we agreed upon. Where did you work? Anna asked. Maybe I know your management? Doris named the company, and Anna sighed. It was Gary's firm. Of course, he had not chosen the girl by chance. Perhaps she had been set up deliberately to lead to this outcome. Doris, I implore you, don't get involved in my husband's schemes, Anna pleaded. I don't know what he's up to, but if something goes wrong, come to me. I live in this building. I'm sorry, but I promised, Doris sighed. And besides, what if you're deceiving me too? The women parted ways, and instead of going to her friend's house, Anna returned home, where she found her mother-in-law. Ellen had once been on Anna's side. She had insisted that Gary marry this girl, almost destitute by their family standards. But since then, Anna's life had turned into a nightmare. Her mother-in-law visited them twice a week, inspecting the rooms and rummaging through the closets as if she expected to find something illegal there. For example, a lover. Ellen could throw a fit over wilted flowers in a vase. Last time, that very vase nearly hit Anna in the head. Of course, she dodged it, and the vase shattered against the door frame. Every time, Ellen reminded her daughter-in-law that she had risen from nothing to something only thanks to Ellen's efforts. You are nobody, so don't argue with me, the mother-in-law shouted. Why isn't my son home? Where has he been, and why do you, his wife, know nothing about it? We just have a trusting relationship, Anna defended herself. And Gary will definitely come back. Why are you so spineless? Someone else would have thrown a grand tantrum, demanded an explanation, while you just sit there whining about trust. I demand that you keep an eye on him. You need to know where Gary goes and where he is. Okay, I'll try, Anna promised, but it was difficult to keep her word. Gary also didn't value his wife at all. Today, Ellen was particularly critical. She immediately found something to nitpick. She noted that Anna should have dyed her hair a long time ago. Then she rummaged through the refrigerator and found no prepared food. Out of indignation, she moved on to other accusations. What are you even doing? You haven't had any grandchildren, nothing. I'm starting to regret recommending you as a wife for Gary. Ellen, isn't it your son who is distancing himself from me? And he probably has a mistress. Anna retorted. And you seem to turn a blind eye to that. And what have you done? Have you worked on your appearance or done anything to interest your husband? Ellen yelled at her. You sit around with your tail like a rat on your head, gaining weight. By the way, I can still fit into my wedding dress, while you already wear jeans that are so big it's inappropriate to say. Of course, my clothing size is directly related to your son's behavior, Anna scoffed. It's clear that Gary is out and about with your full consent. Your beloved mommy just covers for him. They argued for some time, refusing to acknowledge anyone's point of view. Meanwhile, Gary was busy buying a car in which the transformed homeless woman was destined to burn. He had already forgotten the name of the woman that his mistress had found among the many employees of his chain of stores. The plan with Viola had been thought out to the last detail. Tomorrow, his mistress was supposed to take a large cash payment on behalf of her father once again. Usually, she would take a driver for this, but sometimes she rented a car. Gary had already prepared such a vehicle. His task was to meet Viola's double. They needed to bring her to a secluded spot under a bridge where the events would unfold. Then, they would put her to sleep by adding a prepared substance to her tea or coffee, and from there, they would decide the fate of their victim. In the evening, Gary returned home as if nothing had happened. Tired after the confrontation with her mother-in-law, Anna was already asleep. He didn't wake her and simply lay down quietly next to her. In the morning, he called the hostel and asked to speak to Doris. He informed her that he would pick her up at noon. By that time, Viola had already found a similar cloak and clothing, styled her hair as Gary had instructed, and achieved a maximum resemblance to the woman she had never even seen. Meanwhile, Gary went to fetch Doris. She had managed to take a shower and fix her hair. It didn't quite turn out the same as in the salon, but overall, it looked similar. Gary handed her the clothes she was to wear for the next few hours. Doris obediently put them on without asking any unnecessary questions. That morning, she felt like a lamb destined for slaughter. She had the same feeling she experienced in the orphanage when the other girls decided to give her a dark time. They had thrown a cover over her head, knocked her down, and kicked her in a group. Then they told the caretakers that Doris had simply fallen and hurt herself. Of course, Gary wasn't threatening her, but there was something terrifying about his plan. And although they had promised her a harmless masquerade, she still took a sharpened screwdriver with her. She had never parted with it since the orphanage. Once, a familiar boy had explained that in skilled hands, this tool could easily turn into a formidable weapon. Stuffing it into her pocket, Doris went out to Gary. Her passport had remained with him since yesterday when she checked into the hostel. The benefactor had said it was a guarantee for him, implying that without the document, Doris wouldn't run far. Just yesterday, Gary had been driving a shiny new foreign car, but today the vehicle looked somewhat shabby. Doris sat in the back seat, while a woman in clothing reminiscent of her own outfit from yesterday occupied the front. Meanwhile, Gary offered her coffee from a thermos to warm up and perk up. The woman poured herself a portion but wasn't in a hurry to take a sip. The car started moving and headed toward the city exit. They turned toward an old car bridge that was hardly used. Doris pretended to drink the coffee, feeling increasingly terrified. It was evident that there was no talk of any party. Moreover, the woman sitting in the front suddenly removed her dark glasses and baseball cap, then looked directly at her. Doris nearly screamed. Their resemblance was striking, like twins. The woman looked much more polished, though. Overcome with fear, Doris shouted, "Stop the car. I've changed my mind about helping you." "Not a chance." Gary laughed. "Drink your coffee, don't be difficult. I've paid a good amount of money, and you agreed. Stop it, or I'll jump out." Doris screamed, to which Gary clicked the automatic door locks. Doris pulled the screwdriver from her pocket and jabbed it at him, not really expecting success. But Gary shrieked, threw his hands to his neck, and the car swerved, careening onto the bridge and then flew off, crashing through the barriers. The last thing Doris saw was the thermos of coffee, its contents splattering throughout the cabin. Then came the impact, pain, and silence. She awoke in a hospital room with bright lighting and snow-white linens. In the adjacent bed lay the very stranger Doris had seen in the car. But now she did not look polished at all. Her body was tangled in wires, and a heart monitor was beeping and blinking. The woman's face was gaunt, pale as a sheet of paper, waxen and lifeless. Doris sat up in bed, then got up. Suddenly, a middle-aged man, heavy-set and gray-haired, burst into the room. He rushed to hug her, but then shifted his gaze to the second bed and clutched his heart. Doctors hurried in behind him. "What are you doing? How did you get in here?" "You can't help your daughter right now," they urged Henry. "She needs blood. Better look for a donor, it's a rare group. And with that Rh factor, it's almost hopeless." "Why do they look so much alike?" Henry croaked, collapsing onto the empty bed. "Like twins. Who is this girl? Was she in the car with my daughter? Please, tell me something." "Yes, she can tell you herself. She can definitely talk. This girl was sitting in the back and sustained only minor injuries. She has some bruises and severe stress. But your daughter and the man who was sitting in the front are in worse condition. Where are you going to find this rare blood group?" Henry protested. Time is running out. Unfortunately, yes, the doctor replied. Otherwise, medicine will be powerless. What's her blood type and RH factor? Doris asked. If you found my passport, it's noted there. Will that work? I'm actually a donor. I've donated several times. Yes, your passport is in the chief doctor's safe. Just a moment, the doctor said, bustling around. 5 minutes later, one of them returned and said, Are you ready to donate blood now? We can do a direct transfusion, everything matches. Are you sure you're not related? You look so much alike. Doris was laid on a stretcher in the bed next to Viola's, and the transfusion system was connected. A nurse was nearby, constantly checking on her well-being. Then they gave her sweet tea to drink, and Doris fell asleep. When she awoke, she immediately heard Henry's booming bass. Yes, I will pay for a room for both girls. What do you want? Of course, the best conditions, maximum comfort. I'm not sparing any expense. He entered the room. You're awake, Doris? How wonderful. Hello. I don't know your name. But how is that girl, Viola? You've come to your senses. All thanks to you. They'll move you to another room, a better one. And what should I call you? Well, you can call me Uncle Henry if you like, the man smiled. Or Henry Tate if you're feeling shy. But tell me, where did you grow up? In an orphanage. Then I was adopted at 10, but it didn't go very well. It just happened that way. Since I was 16, I've practically been homeless. I've been living on my own. Ah, the first orphanage? Henry continued his inquiries. And your birthday is November 8th? That's right. How do you know? Doris was surprised. If that director were alive, I'd have her jailed. Henry exclaimed. I would have raised a fuss, but I found out while you were sleeping. You and my Viola are identical twin sisters. If my wife and I had been told about her as a baby, we would have adopted both of you. But we were only given one girl and told nothing about the sister. Maybe they had plans for you. But Viola went home, and you stayed in the orphanage. You share the same birthday, and you can't tell you apart. Doris burst into tears. Henry hugged her shoulders, and she sobbed uncontrollably, mourning what could have been. Then the transfer to the new room began. Viola already knew they were sisters and was also crying, realizing what she had wanted to do. She asked her father to leave them alone. Forgive me. I'm completely reckless. Life is boring. Maybe it's because I've always felt like a half without a whole. We are twins after all. Well, this is unexpected news, Viola replied. There will definitely be consequences. Will you try to wriggle out of this? Well, we'll blame everything on Gary. He has plenty of sins already. One more or one less doesn't matter, Viola smirked. We didn't know anything. He found you himself. He wanted to rob me. You don't know, we took a large sum of money from our father. Well, Gary was after that. And we have no idea why he needed a double. Besides, let's just say you hit your head. All right. Oh, if only you had such imagination in my orphanage. Doris smiled dreamily. What? Was it tough for you? Viola sighed. Well, things will be different now. My parents are really great, you know. I'm just going a little crazy from having too much. Now there's a reason to live. You're my sister, and you're homeless too. I need to take you to resorts, get you clothes and shoes, and provide you with housing. I won't be bored for at least another year. Now come here, let me hug you. And stop crying. We can't afford to be nervous. Doris rushed to her sister, who had regained consciousness but was still tangled in wires. They embraced and sat silently for a long time, holding each other close. Meanwhile, in another part of the hospital, Gary was coming out of anesthesia after surgery. He was chattering nonstop with a nurse, recounting his criminal plans. The young nurse was startled by his unexpected confessions. He reported everything to the chief doctor, who called the police. After questioning Viola, who partially confirmed this version while covering for herself and her sister, Gary was arrested. They began processing his transfer to the hospital block of the pretrial detention center. Naturally, they called his relatives. Anna picked up the phone, and a barrage of news hit her. While she tried to figure out what to do, her head began to spin, and her stomach hurt. She barely managed to call an ambulance before nearly losing consciousness. Anna was brought to the same hospital where Gary was still being held and where the sisters were recovering. The doctors wouldn't let the investigators see her. She was experiencing a miscarriage and required complete rest. Anna was placed on bed rest, with all contact prohibited. She lay there pale and frightened. She was almost 10 weeks along and now thought about how not to lose this child, long awaited but unplanned. Meanwhile, Gary was sent to pretrial detention. However, his mother hired a lawyer to ensure her son remained free until the trial. The lawyer succeeded in getting him placed under house arrest. Ellen also demanded that her son file for divorce from Anna himself. She understood that if the wife wanted to prove the existence of a mistress, it would be easy. They wouldn't get off so easily. There was a prenuptial agreement with a special clause regarding infidelity. As a negotiator, Ellen even tried to enter Anna's room, but she was met with resistance from Anna's attending physician. He even refused to disclose his daughter-in-law's diagnosis. Instead, he went to see Anna himself. "Your mother-in-law is eager to see you. Do you want to meet her? Can we avoid that?" Anna asked quietly. "And please don't mention my pregnancy. Of course, I won't let anyone in. Your diagnosis is protected by medical confidentiality. You can tell her yourself if you want, or not." She brought a note. "Would you like me to read it?" "Maybe you could." Anna requested and listened as he read her mother-in-law's proposal regarding the division of property. Ellen offered a decent sum of money and an apartment. "Tell her I agree." "All right. By the way, my name is Herman. I'll give you my mobile number, so call me anytime. Just in case you want juice or fruit." The nice young doctor smiled at her. "Thank you," Anna smiled back. "I'm craving something sour. I feel like I could eat a whole lemon." "Got it. I'll get some by the evening." Herman grinned widely and disappeared. Anna finalized the divorce without leaving her room. She signed all the papers in the presence of a notary. Her pregnancy was still at risk, but for now, she was managing to keep it. During her first ultrasound, Herman sat beside her, holding Anna's hand and gently stroking it. They spent more and more time together. Anna understood that her feelings were mutual but was afraid to build a new relationship on the ruins of the old one. It was a chance encounter that helped her make a decision. When Anna was finally allowed to get up and walk a little, she encountered Viola and Doris in the hospital corridors. One sister was still sitting in a wheelchair, finding it difficult to walk. The other was pushing the chair and laughing at some joke. When Doris saw Anna, she stopped and waved. "Hello. You know, I'm so grateful to you right now. You really tried to save me, didn't you?" "Oh, it's nothing," Anna smiled. "Are you doing well?" "Wait a minute. You're the wife of that nutty Gary. I remember seeing you at some event," Viola recalled. "Well, a friend of my sister is definitely not an enemy. Join us for our evening hangout if you're bored. Room 5, no need to knock." That evening, Anna indeed visited her sisters. Herman was on shift but busy with other patients. She felt a little lonely. Laughter erupted from room 5. Anna knocked and entered. Henry, Viola, and Doris were drinking tea with cookies and sharing jokes. They warmly welcomed their new guest and went through the introductions again. Then Doris thought to ask, "So, what brings you here? We're clearly deeply traumatized." "I'm pregnant and was admitted with a threat of miscarriage," Anna confessed unexpectedly. "Everything is almost fine now. I even managed to get a divorce. Gary was in such a hurry about that. Well, of course. Dad said there's a whole drama going on. They found a ton of debts with your Gary. He probably wishes he had gone to jail ahead of time. They kicked him out of the company. His mother is selling her assets to bail him out. And you were just tossed aside like dead weight. Well, it's easier for me, Anna replied. I would have filed for divorce myself. Gary's decision suits me just fine. Wait, but is the baby from your husband? Is he aware? Viola bombarded her with questions. But at that moment, Herman burst into the room. There you are. I've been running all over the hospital looking for you. Why did you leave your phone in your room, Anna? Why were you looking for me? She smiled. Did something happen? No, my mom said you mashed potatoes with cutlets. Go eat while it's hot. Anna smiled and went to grab a bite. Her appetite was almost ferocious. And Herman's mother's cutlets always came in handy. She had never met the woman but already loved her almost. The next day, Anna visited her sister's room again, and they bombarded her with questions. So, who is that handsome guy, anyway? Viola asked. Does he have any nice friends or colleagues? He's actually my attending physician, Anna smiled. Aha, apparently, the sisters laughed. He treats you with cutlets. Very therapeutic. What's wrong with you girls? Anna burst into laughter. Are you jealous? Of course. Viola confirmed. All we have here is Dad, and you have a real model. And he's a doctor, too. If you haven't decided yet, my advice is to grab this Herman and marry him fast. It seems like your mother-in-law comes as a nice bonus, too. Until that moment, Anna hadn't taken Herman's courtship seriously, but an outside perspective changed her mind. She reciprocated his feelings, and the young man proposed to her. But I'm pregnant by someone else, Anna replied, confused. Doesn't that bother you? No, I understand your situation. Besides, there are no such things as other people's children. I'm adopted, my mother is infertile. I'm ready to raise your son as my own. Just agree. I promise I'll never hold anything from the past against you. What if it's a daughter? Anna smiled. Are you ready for that too? Of course, but the ultrasound shows it's a boy. My mom is already looking for blue baby clothes. A couple of weeks later, Anna was finally discharged. She immediately moved in with Herman and his mother, Linda. The future mother-in-law surrounded her daughter-in-law with care and love. However, Anna's own mother did not forgive her for the collapse of her plans for enrichment. She came to the hospital only once to tell Anna what a foolish mistake she had made by divorcing Gary. Anna's arguments did not interest her. However, upon learning that her former son-in-law was bankrupt and under investigation, Mary even felt relieved that their family was no longer involved with him. After all, they could have faced asset confiscation. Now, her daughter's actions seemed prudent to her. But Mary would never admit that to herself. Anna and Herman didn't throw a lavish wedding. They quietly and modestly got married at the registry office. The registrar kept glancing at the bride's noticeable belly and then remarked, "Why did you take so long? Now it's clear you can't fit into just any dress." I was on bed rest, Anna smiled. And I needed to get a divorce from my last husband. And where do you find so many suitors? The registrar sighed enviously. Here, just to get married once is a huge problem. And you're getting hitched while pregnant. Well, that's it. I wish you happiness. Your marriage is registered. Herman scooped up his wife and twirled her around. He truly fell in love with Anna at first sight and was happy to accept her, even with 10 children. The newlyweds received an unexpected gift from Doris and Viola. They gave them a certificate for a children's store for a large sum. Anna and her mother-in-law immediately went to choose a stroller and a crib, and they had no time to waste. The sisters were also discharged from the hospital. Of course, one of them stayed in the paid room more for company than out of necessity. During this time, Henry obtained proof of their kinship and even included the second sister in his will. However, he didn't say anything to them about it. Instead, he involved Doris in the audit of his projects. Viola eagerly helped her sister get up to speed. Now they were inseparable and appeared together everywhere. Viola bought her sister several outfits, and they made a striking impression due to their physical resemblance. Moreover, the sister who grew up in wealth and luxury constantly tried to compensate for Doris's childhood in the orphanage. Doris, on the other hand, discovered a talent for finding profitable business ideas, and the sisters decided to focus on their joint ventures. Moreover, there was plenty of money for that. Gary knew nothing about his ex-wife's affairs until he accidentally encountered her mother. Mary informed him that Anna was pregnant and remarried. This news upset Gary. He wanted revenge, to rattle the nerves of the woman who had chosen someone else over him. But not right away. First, he planned to punish the sisters who had caused him trouble. The best way to do this was to strike at Viola's father. His mother successfully secured his release from jail, paying all compensations and even obtaining a certificate stating that Gary was mentally unwell and not responsible for his actions. He spent a month in a specialized clinic and emerged with a certificate that prevented him from driving. However, he was a free man, no longer facing incarceration. Soon after, his mother secured Gary a new position in a warm spot as a competitor to Viola's father. They had long dreamed of harming Henry, and Gary had some information about him, thanks to Viola. He was eager to share it. He just didn't take into account his mistress's rich imagination. A couple of months later, Robert Hunter, the new employer, invited Gary and his mother to his office. "Tell me, did you intentionally set out to harm me, or is this just foolishness?" he began ominously as soon as the visitors crossed the threshold of his office. "All your information is just wrappers, worth nothing. But because of the naivety of my employees, who believed this nonsense, I am about to lose my business reputation." "Oh, come on," Ellen declared. "My son has the most reliable information. It's your employees who must have misunderstood or are unable to grasp it properly. And you, well, this is a different conversation. My business partners say it wasn't even worth getting involved with you. You have a black mark among all the businessmen in the city." "That's all slander," Ellen declared. "Everyone has always been satisfied with our cooperation." "Of course. And those whom your son cheated out of huge sums?" Robert sneered. "My losses are listed right here on paper. Compensate me, or there will be problems. Now leave my office and make sure your spirit isn't around here." Mother and son left the building. Their passes granting access inside were taken away. When they reached the car, Ellen sat in the driver's seat, slammed the door loudly, and yelled, "Why do all the other people have normal children, and I get a fool? What did I say? Blame everything on Anna. I gave you my trusted accountant. You couldn't even handle such a simple task, and now we're in deep trouble, you know what I mean." "Mom, but I tried," Gary groaned. "The circumstances just turned against me." "Aha, you were just planning to run away and take no responsibility." "I've sold everything, Gary, and lost my business reputation. What am I supposed to do now? Shall I apply to work in a nursing home washing pots? If we give that crook what he demands, we'll be completely broke. And it's all your fault. Where did you get this information?" "Viola told me." "According to her, the father is the king of illogical actions," Gary explained. "Maybe I just misunderstood something?" "No, you were played. You fell for it like a child," his mother snapped at him. "That's it, I'm not pulling you out anymore. You'll have to swim on your own. I wash my hands of you." Tired of the arguments with his mother, but not finding enough satisfaction in his attempts at revenge, Gary decided to shift his focus to his ex-wife. Especially since she was in a much more vulnerable position. He quietly found out where Anna was living now, waited for her during a walk in the park, and started a scene. "So, you decided to have a baby for yourself? And you found yourself a younger man," he began. Aren't you ashamed? Or does he not know that this is my child? Well, I'll tell him. Let everyone be in the know. Gary, please stop. People are watching, Anna pleaded with her ex-husband. What difference does it make whose child it is? First and foremost, he is mine, and you're free from alimony and all that. Yeah, you played me like a fool, he screamed. You looked like an innocent little sheep. And what did you get? An apartment, money that my mother bequeathed. Are you living well now? And we're poor, Anna. Well, you definitely shouldn't blame me for that, she replied. You're the one at fault with your schemes. Do you think I didn't know you were planning to run away? And I would have to deal with everything here. Thanks, my sister's already enlightened me about your role in this matter. It's surprising what even the closest people are capable of, right? And you know what, my dear? Gary smirked. I'm now officially insane and not responsible for anything. So, that's the inheritance your child will have. Are you ready to raise a psycho? Or maybe he'll be born unhealthy right from the start. Who knows how genetics will play out? You're lying to upset me. Anna replied in a trembling voice. You just made that up. Come on, tell me it's a lie. By the way, statistically, the illness can manifest in later generations, her ex-husband laughed. Ready to pass such a gift on to your grandchildren, huh? Anna? Will they thank you for that? She burst into tears and hurried home. The only thought in her head was that she couldn't let her nerves harm the baby. She initially said nothing to her husband, but her mother-in-law noticed her condition and told Herman everything. He started to question her about the reasons, and Anna cried and revealed everything. All right, stop crying, her husband ordered. Don't forget, I'm a doctor, and my mom is a doctor too. We have relatives in almost every hospital in our dynasty. We'll find out some information about your Gary and his family. Herman, can you really do this for me? Anna sobbed. I'm so scared for the baby, you just don't understand. Oh, you found someone to listen to. Yes, don't cry, her husband replied. I'll find out everything as quickly as possible. And your ex-husband will find it hard to deal with the information. Besides, just stay on bed rest for now and give me your phone so you won't get stressed. Okay, as you say, Anna sighed. He won't leave me in peace, apparently. He's always dreaming of revenge. Gary truly did not relent. He sent disturbing stories about hereditary mental illnesses and their consequences to his ex-wife's phone. He dropped terrifying statistics, which he had concocted himself. Herman read this nonsense and was astonished by Gary's imagination and determination. Fortunately, Anna was now well protected, the ward was peaceful and orderly. Everyone had been informed that only her husband and mother-in-law could visit the patient. After making inquiries, Herman discovered that Gary's family had never suffered from any hereditary diseases. The certificate he bragged about had simply been bought from a less-than reputable orderly. The orderly had stolen a form with stamps from the hospital and forged the entry himself. In general, the diagnosis turned out to be fake. Once Herman found this out, he reported the forgery to the authorities. After all, Gary had avoided punishment thanks to that certificate. He also filed a complaint that Anna's ex-husband was stalking and harassing her. Fortunately, there was plenty of evidence of his threats. In their correspondence, Gary was not shy with his words, vividly describing what kind of child his ex-wife would have and what problems awaited her. The officer who accepted the complaint had a pregnant wife himself, so he took the case with great enthusiasm. Simultaneously, the case against Gary for attempted murder was reopened, and it didn't take long before he was too preoccupied to carry on with the mischief he was sending to his ex-wife. When they came to arrest him, his mother sighed with relief. Gary had already thoroughly ruined her life with his antics. When all this happened, Herman came to his wife with a report. See? I dug up all the records even back to your great-grandparents. There were never any mentally ill people in their lineage, he declared. Your Gary lied about everything. He even obtained a certificate of his alleged insanity through dishonest means, so you can rest easy, our baby will be fine. Well, unless we consider how foolish his biological father is. I think a smart mom will likely compensate for that shortcoming. Herman, thank you, she hugged her husband. I was so worried. It's good that you're protecting me from everything. I wouldn't be able to handle it. I don't have the strength to be so anxious anymore. It's all over. Here's your phone back. You can take calls from friends again. By the way, your mom wrote to me. We chatted a bit and even had a call. And how did that go? Anna asked cautiously. Did she ruin your mood a lot? Oh, not at all. My mother-in-law is the sweetest woman. She's planning to buy a crib for the grandson. She asked if it was too early. Anna smiled and suddenly felt a wave of pain. Another followed. Herman understood immediately. Labor had begun. He asked a colleague to cover for him on duty and accompanied his wife to the maternity ward. The contractions continued until morning. Anna was exhausted and worn out. Then their Arthur arrived, loud, red, and the most beautiful in the world. The young parents were overjoyed. Anna spent the designated time in the hospital, and on the day of her discharge, she was greeted on the porch by a whole delegation of her mother, mother-in-law, and former classmates from college. Also present were her sisters, Doris and Viola, holding large bunches of blue balloons. The guests settled into their cars and drove home to Herman and Anna's. Mary and her mother-in-law walked around Arthur's crib on tiptoes, not allowing anyone near their grandson. The women had clearly become friends and were now sharing their memories and secrets of motherhood. They also agreed to take walks together with the grandson. Anna asked her mother, "How is this possible? You wanted to control everything I wanted my whole life. But now you're all affectionate with Arthur." "Well, Anna, he's a grandson. And you're a child. You need to understand the difference. If you're not a bit stricter, children will quickly take advantage of you. Besides, didn't my advice come in handy? You were married to a wealthy man and received a decent financial compensation. Now you don't even have to work. By the way, I approve of your choice in a son-in-law. A doctor in the family is very practical. We even have a whole medical dynasty here, right? There you go again, looking for a benefit." Anna smiled. "It's a great idea, but I'm glad you two get along. I actually missed you. And besides, I have grand plans. So, having grandmother's help with the grandson will definitely not be unnecessary." But for a certain period, Anna didn't tell anyone about her plans. Only when Arthur turned 6 months old did she invite Viola and Doris for a talk. "Girls, I really need your advice, as well as an outside perspective. I've always wanted to work in beauty. I love hairstyles and everything related to them. Do you think I could become a businesswoman?" "Of course. Just don't jump in right away," the sensible Doris replied. "First, draft a business plan, calculate everything, and show it to us. You're an accountant, you should be able to balance the numbers." "Yes, that makes sense. We'll see what you come up with. For now, you can take a course." "You never finished, did you? You'll become a fashionable stylist, and we'll book appointments with you in advance." "Yeah, all right." Anna laughed. "You both get priority. I'll start with the business plan. What's next?" "Well, what's next? We look for a place to rent." "We can ask Dad," Viola replied. "Think about the renovations, see how much everything else will cost, and consider where to find stylists. In short, get to work, calculate, and we'll happily join in." "Okay, because I've already racked my brain. The further I go, the scarier it becomes," Anna admitted. "And don't worry about the money, we're ready to be your partners or investors," Doris smiled. "Can you imagine? I'm now a coveted bride with a dowry. I even started taking driving lessons because Dad wants to give me a car for my birthday. And Viola promised me a road trip next summer. So, I'm preparing. They chatted for a long time, walking through the park. It was a sunny day, and little Arthur happily wiggled in his stroller, tugging at his rattles. The sisters and Anna strolled slowly along the paths, heading toward their new life. Herman fully supported his wife's idea to start a business and open a salon. Anna shifted some of the responsibilities for their son onto the grandmothers and prepared a business plan. She found a location, hired staff, and unexpectedly managed to secure the very same master stylist with whom she had never finished her training. All it took was offering her a share in the venture. The opening was grand and festive. Not believing her luck, Anna stepped to the door and cut the crimson ribbon that blocked the entrance. Everyone around her clapped and smiled. It seemed the difficult period was behind her, and ahead lay only happiness and a new successful career as the owner of a beauty salon.